let's get going with the exam. Maybe. Okay, so in order to get you a chance to explore your skills from the course, what you have learned, we will go through the Go and Train case, which was the exam case from last year. And what we will work one question at a time, and give you 10 minutes to think about the responses to these questions, and then have about 5 minutes to discuss. We have actually plenty of time, so we can take a bit longer if it takes. But in class, if you want, you can work with others. I mean, if you want to do it in small groups, that's completely fine. Or if you want to do it on your own, that's up to you. It might be nice to kind of reflect with someone next to you, but since in these times I'm not expecting you, it's not something it's up to your choice whether you want to do that or not. And what I suggest that instead of in the exam, of course, you need to write complete sentences and write in proper paragraphs. But here, it would be good maybe to make an outline of the concepts that you would use and how you would kind of argue your case. So that you kind of think about which concepts, theoretical frameworks would you include in your responses when you explore the case. Because of course in the exam you get the raw material from the case, but it's not just repeating the case back to you. It's somehow how you link the different concepts we have used to the case and explain the case through those concepts. That's the point in the exam, in the way that you have how you are expected to respond. Does that make sense? All clear so far. And here are the three questions. So let's start with the first one. How can Go and Train approach create value for its partners and different types of end customers? And as I sent you an email announcement earlier, we kind of expect that you have read the case, so I'm not going to go through the case as such. So I expect that you know and you have read what is there so that you can start to work with it. I think as a kind of a small thing, I could sort of say that think about there are different kind of end customers that they have, and what do those different end, what does value mean? What is creating value to these different types of end customers mean? Okay, so then I'll just put the timer on, and in 10 minutes it will ring, and then we start to see what you have come up with. If you have any questions at this point, please let me know. And now there is 2 of us here, so those who are online, if you have questions or comments, write them to the chat. Or you can write them, I don't know whether you're online or just here, but anyway, Michaela is following the chat, so we can take those questions that come from online as well and input, so feel free to use that option. Yeah.
Can I just ask you a quick question? It's more related to what we talked about in the last lecture, but I'm still confused about the differences between co-producing and co-creating.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think in a way when you talk about co-creation and co-production, I think we need to refer to whose paper you're facing. Because co-creation is used in a very, very wide way. And that's why we started by saying, okay, co-creation is something that happens in direct interaction with providers and customers. And then there is this value creation for the customer, for the value in use, which is more what happens to the customer, what is the customer experience. And maybe if it's in a direct interaction, then the provider is part of that value creation in value in use. But co-production is often meaning that actually the service is co-produced. The customer is part of producing the service. So when we are in the shop and we kind of use the self-service cashier, that's co-producing the service. When we and the examples in Heidenreich, they have this when we actually go and order the train tickets or whatever, we are co-producing. But we can also co-produce partly when we are taking part in innovation processes like innovation platform, where we have big ideas to a product. In a way, that's also kind of a co-producing. So basically, in a way, co-creation basically covers the whole thing. But then there is two types of co-creation. There is the more the value we use for the customer experience, and then the co-production, which is more related to actually producing the service or product.
So when you talk about open innovation and whatnot, that kind of sits around in producing.
Yeah.
But it still falls within co-creating.
Yeah, that would be my interpretation. I don't know, Michaela, if you want to add something.
So it's probably because I have not looked at all the material for the exam, but right now I feel like there's co-creating, co-creating, like it's all.
I was actually thinking about when I made the slides for today, because the Heidenreich talks about co-production, and the examples that are there are kind of services where customers actually either design their shoes or order the train tickets and so on. So that is co-production. But then it is also co-creation, because that's the services. So there isn't a clear-cut answer, because they are so badly used they are so badly defined in the literature.
And sometimes even I think in the interview, I'll be able to marginalize.
Yeah.
So I think you have to, as the literature says, that more generally link into the model of the because open innovation is also being used. So it means something that is co-creation, so in order to talk about the innovation process and the changing the innovation. So it also should take like that. If it doesn't, I mean, it's fine to talk more about co-creation. I mean, it's not a huge.
It's not, and that was one of the reasons why we had this Kernel's water paper in the beginning, because they clearly talk about this, what is happening in the customer sphere and what is happening in the provider sphere, and then the co-creation needs to be in the joint sphere. But then when we had this other paper that talked about there's part of it is co-production and part of it is value use. But as said, it's as the convention was found in that really badly defined. Yeah. But it's as said, the safe way of dealing with it is to use the term that goes to use the same term as those who kind of right. Leads theory or concept you're referring to. And you can also maybe reflect and say, well, they talk about this, but I think this actually is something else, and that's fine as well, because that shows that you have got the past. Okay. Anything else that you would like to take up? Then I put the timer on. Okay, that's was very quiet, but the time. Good. So the question one, what kind of things did you come up with? Anyone? What concepts and theories would you lead to the first one? It's okay to success. It's not. This is not yet the exam. Yeah.
We talked a little bit about oath of innovation.
Sorry, can it?
And we talked about
Yeah.
oath innovation because of the quote, when it said that they try to create value for their customers by working together with other firms.
Yeah. So the business to business customers.
Yes.
Yeah. And what would it then imply if they are working together in open innovation? How is the value created?
By their sharing their knowledge and gaining some knowledge on the outside so they can improve their products.
Yeah, so they do it together, and they might even maybe have an ecosystem where they have,
They cannot hear the answers. So I
Ah.
just think we can do a Mentimeter or something, or maybe you can just repeat what she's saying.
Yeah, so sorry, it's a kind of, you have to speak loud in this room because the microphone, it's actually quite good microphone, but I don't know how far it takes. So it was a question or suggestion that one could talk about open innovation and how they create value in cooperation with the business-to-business partners. And yeah, I think that's clearly, I mean, one of the things that they are doing with the Agora platform. And then maybe related to that, they might be creating even a ecosystem of how they do innovation in cooperation with different kind of business-to-business partners.
There's someone who wrote, I think, a very elaborated answer. If you want to open the chat, Lisa. Yeah, there is one Mentimeter to include. If you just open where there is more.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Chat.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see what's in here. Yeah, and I think there's a good point about the expert. It's about for the consumer market. It is about the value in use, and the value in use is clearly the way it's produced is very different for those who are very enthusiastic about the sports and those who are the more occasional Sunday joggers. So that's clearly a good point. When talking about value in use, then it would be good to put a reference to, for example, Grönhus and Voima. I mean, that's clearly a reference there. So when responding and using the terms, remember to reference as well. It's not a criticism. I think it's a good point.
I'm sorry. Who did you say you should reference for the value in use?
Well, I mean, the obvious choice would be Grönhus and Voima.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? I mean, there's clearly kind of there's the two types of customers, the consumer market and the business to business, and they have very different approaches in the two, how to innovate in the two markets. And if you look at the customer involvement in value creation, it's also very different for those who are the Sunday joggers and kind of a give feedback and with whom they have contacts, and the ones that are less enthusiastic, where they don't really engage those customers very much and they don't even look for insight. I think actually I'll probably show you them. Okay, so this is what one could, for example, the things one could include in that. So we have, I'll upload these to you, so you'll see them after the today's lecture. So the first point, I think, is to kind of recognize that the value creation is very different for these different types of customers. And talking about this, how these, what options for value creation the Agora platform actually provides to business clients. And there maybe it would be good to talk about this inside out and outside in perspectives, because what they actually clearly have that when it comes to business partners and this Agora, they are going much more from outside in perspective, trying to figure out what their business customers would like to do and being adapting to their needs. Whereas especially in the Sandi Zoka one, it is pretty much producing the product and then the users using them, but not really that much integrating their needs into product development. But however, I think one can kind of argue the outside in and inside out both ways in this case, because it's a very technologically oriented company. So whether they actually kind of, are they truly doing it outside in with this Agora, or are they just starting to do it and still their main emphasis in developing their technologies and then pushing them out to the market rather than trying to adapt their technologies to the customer's needs. And that's something you can basically make a decision which way you see it and then argue your case accordingly. And that's actually one of the points in these case studies or case exams, is that you have the material there and you can, as long as you can argue your case, you can take different things out. And the basic idea is that we want to know that you master the course material. You know the terms. You know how to phrase, how to describe what is happening based on the terms we have used and the theories. And maybe the ecosystem is really important in relation to the Agora system. Anything else, or did you wonder about something, or does something there look odd, that you don't agree with? And also one point, that if you kind of get horrified of all the things that you need to put into an answer, we don't expect you to cover necessarily everything, but there needs to be enough. And here we kind of have gathered all kind of things that could be there, but it doesn't mean that you have to have it all. But if you have 2/3 of those terms in your response, you're doing pretty well. And it depends how you assess, how you analyze the case. What do you see as a kind of a, and of course you need to argue your case. It's not, you need to tell us why you see something as you see. Okay.
Yes, and I think it's important to go in depth with the arguments, so it's better like that you don't use too many things, like that you connect to too many things that the answers become too superficial.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you use some material and use it well to make your argument.
Yeah, so make a good story with enough arguments rather than trying to show that you know all the concepts. That's basically what Mikaela is saying. Yeah, yeah.
Don't go in that.
Yeah, more to the depth than the width. So that's or somewhere enough depth, but enough depth and enough width. Balancing the two. Okay, then let's go to question 2, and the same thing. We give you 10 minutes, and then let's see how we get with the responses. Then it seems to be it's a bit tough with the two systems.
Yes, maybe we can make a Mentimeter in these.
Do you want to do one? Yeah, that's fine.
Let's give 10 minutes.
Yeah.
maybe it's easier to work out the Mentimeter because then they can show the answers there
Okay.
and they will show. That one comes. exact, but I will look at the questions in a moment. Let me just share this. No. Mentimeter.
Yeah, we need to.
Let me just see. Oh yes, something we do. Okay, so also for you online, you can use now Mentimeter to write your answers as well.
And we give you a few minutes extra.
Yes.
So 6 minutes left.
So yes,
I didn't. But I do sometimes encourage like if we know the speed of change and getting older and yeah, I like other things. Follow all, I mean, keep up.
yes, I know it's a lot of
It's changing, yeah. Yeah. No, that's the everybody that's yes, exactly. I think it would be also stuff. When they are doing some complex things as well. Professional athletes. But they want to maybe it's like maybe you can just have yes, that's it.
For the next one, the seconds. Seconds. There's no one to handle between the screens and all other things. The high-techy things. Okay, that's the time. Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about the second question that I can see clearly, of course, points to some of the things, of course, that you also, Lisa, discussed in relation to co-creation, and I can see that many of you also link to that. But clearly, there are also a lot of linkages here that we can make more specifically to the innovation curriculum to discuss really here the benefits of the innovation strategy, but also the challenges here, the risks. I would like actually to start, before I give you my insights also on what would be here relevant things to connect to, actually I would like to engage you a bit here because I can see some of these points, but I have some difficulties in seeing the link between some of the other things and the case. So it would be nice that you maybe elaborate here on what you write just to hear if it's correct, if I understand correctly what you're saying, and if it makes sense to link to that, I will say. But let me just say that generally, yes, if we look at the benefits, I think you point to some important benefits here. If I read your answers, some talk about higher engagement with others, and I assume you are referring to the different types of partners they are working with, can lead to better, higher quality products services. And I think that this is also something that along the lines is mentioned in the case. As well as you say, greater consumer insights can effectively adapt to changing customer needs. Co-creation provides customers with a feeling of accomplishment that enhances satisfaction. Potential to strengthen customer relationships. So you are linking here to many things related to the co-creation curriculum, which I see the point. What about more specifically, some of you are linking to that with open innovation. I'm coming back to that. It would be important here to also think a bit more about the benefits of engaging in open innovation. More specifically, based on the curriculum we discussed, the papers we used also in my part. Because clearly you can look at this case of Go and Train as a case of moving toward open innovation models, right? Where you especially much information on the case is about how Go and Train is collaborating with universities, research institutes, as well as with a variety of partners when it comes to the Agora platform, which is an open innovation platform. So it is indeed essential, I would say here, that you also try to elaborate a bit more on benefits here that are discussed also in the open innovation literature. if you want to give, in my opinion, I don't know if you I don't agree with this, Lisa, but a complete answer on the benefit side. First of all, it would be important to elaborate on what kind of open innovation here you think the company is doing, because we are trying to assess the strategy of the company in terms of benefits and risk. Okay? Some of you here, I can see someone mentioned inbound innovation that is non-pecuniary. It would be nice to hear your argument. Why do you think that what the company is doing can be classified as inbound open innovation? And why it is non-pecuniary type if we look at the Dalander and Gunn article? Does someone want to comment on this? What is the underlying argument? Just for me to hear more details.
If it's from online, just activate your microphone and ask.
Yes,
no, yeah.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
please, if it's from online, activate your microphone.
Or
Your microphone.
elaborate.
Yes, please.
No.
Or anyone or beyond what it's written here, if we have to assess the innovation strategy, and in this case, a more specific engagement in open innovation, how do we classify this? What GoM-Train is doing as an open innovation strategy? Is it inbound? Is it outbound? Both? Why? Well, again, it depends on how you argue it. Here, your arguments are essential because also I can say from the previous year exams, people argued in a different way. And so I can, and in some cases, I could buy the arguments provided. But for example, one could look at it as a case of inbound innovation that in one end is non-pecuniary because if, for example, they are engaging in collaborations with a wider variety of external universities and research institutes to access a wider variety of knowledge and insights. However, you could also argue for a pecuniary character if you look at the open innovation platform Agora. Here, it depends on how you want to argue if basically, this is a way for the company to engage in different types of partnerships, right? So they are involving external partners by making this cloud platform available, giving the possibility to use this platform to bring new types of services and new types of applications, right? In collaboration with the company. So when we talk about these kind of partnerships where the different actors are bringing complementary knowledge assets together, this is something that, according to the Dalander and Gunn classification of innovation, would be on a more acquiring inbound innovation fund. Because they are formal kind of collaborations, partnerships that these different actors are engaging in. It's just to give you some examples. But the point here is that it is not enough, that you just say they are doing inbound open innovation. You need to explain why you argue so and what specifically is the type or the types of inbound or outbound open innovations that they are engaging into. Any thoughts on this? Any other thoughts on this? How would you argue for this? Would you argue similarly or differently, just to have some discussion?
There were some questions, but I didn't get.
Chat 5. Okay. Yes, thanks, Maria, for also your comment here on this. But what I want to say here, so in a nutshell, let's start with the benefits, and then we move to the risks. This is a question, so it's a question where there are some links to the curriculum that are very important to make. So we say that if this is a question where you don't use the open innovation curriculum beyond the co-creation part of it to answer this question, there would be a lack, because it is indeed a case of open innovation. So it's about, what I want to say here, it's about spotting also what are the most relevant concepts or models or parts of the curriculum that we are going to use to answer this question. Some are more relevant than others. And here, open innovation, and I'll come back to that also, ecosystems, will be a very relevant part to connect to. Of course, then you can make other links. For instance, some of you make links to the perspectives, which is a very nice thing to make additionally, but it shouldn't be like one of the most important links to make, because we don't have so much information from the case on this. We could make some arguments, we can make some assumptions, yes, and link to this, I agree. But it is indeed an open innovation case. I just want to make sure that you're seeing this, an engagement with external partners. About the challenges, and let me just move on to the challenges to give you some insights here and risks. So some of you are mentioning some of the risks that relate to also what Lisa discussed today. You are mentioning this self-serving bias, and also this about if people do not engage enough, if not engaging enough, that people will stop using the open platform. If the outcome is not as expected, let me see. It could have a negative brand attitude, or customers can get a negative attitude if they feel like they are not responded to or overlooked. I think that I think it's okay to argue for these things, but in my opinion, when I look at what the answers you are giving here, I like a bit the connection with the case. Like some of these things are good because you know, and Lisa, tell me if you agree with me, from the curriculum, you know that there could be potential risks that the company could face. And it's good to argue along the lines that these are things that could happen, that the company could face as potential downsides of this strategy. That's fair enough, and it's okay that you do that. But there are also some risks clearly, explicitly present in the case that you should be able to spot and to be able to use the curriculum to analyze them. What do I mean with this? Let me give you a concrete example. A concrete example of this would be to connect to the ecosystem paper, I'll come back to that in a moment, and to open innovation literature. To talk about also the challenges. Why? If you think about the Salter article, like I think one of you is right here, they're really talking about the challenges that happen when you have to build new types of partnerships, so engage in new types of partnerships. And some of the challenges of doing that are along the lines on what is described here in the case. Like, for example, in just to give a concrete example on page and got find it. Yeah, so on page 3. They're talking about how accommodating all the interests and requests from the partners was very difficult to do, how to organize the partners' contacts, how to work in collaboration with them, how to accommodate the technology to various solutions. These are all issues that indeed relate to how you on managing partnerships, which also Salter is talking about first. But secondly, very importantly, they are exactly what Adner and colleagues are talking about in the ecosystem paper. They are talking about that when you engage with external partners in co-creating value, there are 3 types of risks that you can face: interdependency risks, initiative risks, and integration risks. And if you look at these quotes from the article, the case, they are very much along the line of these 3 types of risks that Arne and colleagues are talking about when you engage with external partners in ecosystem. So what I want to give you here as a feedback is fine that some of your answers are more about potential risks or like things that you assume could be a consequence, but it's very important that you carefully read the case to say, okay, I can see that there are some challenges mentioned here that clearly link to some of the things in the curriculum. And you want to make sure that you analyze those challenges in light of those parts, of those concepts from the curriculum. Like here, the risks in ecosystems or open innovation literature and the problems when you engage with partners in collaborations. Do you see what I mean? So that is mainly one main feedback to give. Yes. Yes, and this is, we will also again share these things, but this is basically a collection again, of things that could be mentioned, and this is also based on things you could mention from the curriculum, but again, those two things at the top here should actually be those things that you should really link to. If you don't link to that, you haven't seen the key issues in the paper. And then there are additional things you could link to. This is not exhaustive list, but it depends on how you argue along the way. You can go with the perspectives, or you can go with the co-creation part more specifically that you can use to further build your arguments, or even, for instance, use some of the things from the digital transformation class of today with Fitzgerald, where they also talk about some of the challenges that link to some of the things we discussed above, or some of my slides as well on digital transformation, to also link to that. There are important links you can make across these parts. It's just to give you some examples. Okay. Let's move on because we need to go to the third question.
Yeah.
Go back to the... Yes, so now this will be a more open question. So what do they should do then? What would be the next steps of Go and Train according to you, based on the curriculum?
Yeah. And I squeeze a bit time because...
Yes, I do 5 minutes here.
Maybe.
We will give you a new question on Wednesday.
So I'm trying to go to the next one here.
Oh, okay. I think
Because it couldn't open.
Oh, okay. Right.
It wouldn't go.
Yeah, it's very slow.
Yes, but now you.
Yeah. I think it would be good to have something.
Yes, yes. I think this is more open conversation.
Yeah.
This open about it. At least it's open. Yeah. I actually think 6 and something, so that's not true. Okay, 16 seconds. Okay, that's the time. Okay. Yep. So, yeah, go ahead. Yes, but let's very briefly conclude here. I think, so this is a typical question that is very open. I mean, there is not any right answer, but it's about you deciding how to use some parts of the curriculum to explain what they should do.
So building upon also what we discussed in the previous question, then how can we use the other curriculum to provide some suggestions? So it's very important just to remember that those suggestions need to be grounded on the curriculum that we're using. Like for example, here someone is talking about applying an omnichannel approach. And it would be useful here that you expand and explain how this would be beneficial more and how they could do that. Like, why would that be a beneficial next step for the company to do? Always make sure that when you come up with a suggestion in these kind of questions, it has to be clear why this is useful and how are you going to do that based on the suggestion, based on the curriculum you're applying. For instance, in these questions here, I see your points. They are, I think, good points. But how do they link more precisely to the curriculum? I cannot fully, I don't know your list, but like, in which more specific, how specifically are you building on the curriculum? Which references or which concepts are you building on to come up with these suggestions? You have to be very precise. I just want to make this as a general feedback. When you're saying, for example, that they should focus time and energy on maintaining this for future utilization of co-creating value for the consumers, but then how can they do that, and how does this more? How can you use them more the curriculum here to develop this suggestion? It's so the suggestion has to link to the curriculum. That's the point. Make sure that you remember that. And you can take many different directions. So that's the openness of this question. So there is not a right or wrong answer in any way.
Yeah, I think one of the things is that when one is kind of responding to this, you get this idea, I think something, and that's fine. I mean, I think, you can write out, I think this and this and this. And then the next thing is to think about, why do I think this? And if you can actually justify your I think sentence, then it's probably okay to put it in. And once you have, I think this is this and this, and then you have the answer to the why, and then you think the I think out, because you don't need the I think anymore because you have a justification.
Yes.
So that's a sort of a, because sometimes we get responses where someone says, I think something. Well, that's fine, but it's not really a proper argument in a kind of a more factual based language. I mean, but when you have this feeling that I think, there probably is something, you just need to think about why. And can I actually justify this feeling that I think something?
Based on
the course.
On the course.
Yeah.
And there are some.
Yeah, there's some, but I don't know.
Let me help you. So.
Oh well, yeah, that went quickly.
Oh.
And I didn't really mean to do this one.
The blue box is really good.
Well, it's actually disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody asked whether we could upload more past exams to the Blackboard. We can do that, but we don't really have answers to them. I mean, not in the same way as we have for this one.
No, so you cannot get feedback. I mean, we are gonna give feedback on this today, but you can practice on, of course, other exam cases. Not a problem. We can share them.
Yeah.
But we're not gonna share the solution. Okay, so these are just some examples of what you, again, it's a very open question, so you can decide how you're going to develop the answer in any way. So these are just some examples of what you could link, how you could link to the curriculum, if it's mainly going into design thinking or, I don't know, qualitative insights to improve the outside-in approach, or how we can maybe move toward, I don't know, spiral approaches to involve more the voice of the customer and thus increase the amount of feedback that you get about the products, or crowdsourcing, use of cross-functional teams to move beyond the homogeneous MPD teams that they are using as it is mentioned in the case, and what would be the benefit of doing that. So, I mean, dexterity, again, it's how you want to build the answer, because you can make so many links, but what we want to say is that you have to think about this, a suggestion that is grounded on or based coming from something from the curriculum and the justification, okay?
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Then we can just conclude with.
Yeah, I have one slide, and that's a referencing one. When you write your answers, reference your concepts. And when you reference to the course literature, you don't need to write that the reference list at the end. It's just giving the reference where it comes from. If you reference to the Silling book, that's reading material. It's nice if you give the page numbers, but please give at least the chapter to which you refer to. So, I mean, so what exactly, which part of the textbook you're referring to?
Yes.
And that's normally, I mean, that's also good practice for the future, because whenever you refer something to a book, you need to give the page numbers. Not normally on, depending a bit also, although on where you're writing, but normally in articles, you don't need the page numbers as a reference when you, in the text.
Yeah.
But for books, you need that. And if you, for any reason, feel like you need to use something outside the course literature, then give the full reference at the end. I mean, reference it in the text as you would reference anything else, and give the full reference in the end. We are not expecting you to do that, but it's just that in case you do, we don't have to wonder what on earth is it, and go to the database and find it. We can see, okay, this is the paper, and that helps us. And when we read the exams, you want to keep us happy. No, but in a way, it's nice to kind of know where it comes from. And of course, if we need to go and check a lot of things, that is a bit sort of takes a bit of effort. And as we know, people tend to be a bit lazy, and that also applies to us. So we might not be that happy if we have to check a lot. So just be nice to us, and if you use other references, write them out.
But only if necessary, because I mean, you are evaluated on the curriculum. So unless it's something you think is, I really want to use this or something, you are not required to do that.
Yeah, and it's so in a way we don't expect that, and it's not also a very good strategy not to have anything from the curriculum and having a lot of external ones.
No, that should be the curriculum. Yes.
Yeah, not highly appreciated. Okay. Do you have any questions related to the exam? I said we will upload a few examples from the previous years if you want to practice. There's one question somewhere.
Yeah, I'll check it.
I don't know, we probably have a minute or two left. But I think what we would very much like to hear, if you have some feedback you would like to, we have 4 minutes, if you would like to share your experiences. I think one of as said, we had very, very few evaluations, but I think one of the things was sort of whether it's good to have 2 times 2 hours or 1 time 4 hours as a kind of a class. And that's not something we decided. I think it's probably due to the COVID-19 that all the classes nowadays more or less run in kind of 4 hours on the road. But has that something been that has been a good thing or a bad thing, or do you have an experience? Or anything else you would like to say? What would be, how to improve the course? What would be the kind of things to do?
Hi, Lisa.
Yeah, what did you say?
I just have a quick question about there's some cases that we did in the class with IDEO Amtrak and the Nokia case, if you remember.
Yes.
Will you guys upload some example answers to those cases, like you did with the Coloplast case?
Yes, sure. I can share those. Not a problem. Yes.
don't know if we had some stuff on Menti or something, but it would be nice.
Yes, yes, especially for the Nokia. So I will just upload the screenshots so you have some of the written answers. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. And then we upload the slides, the results, or the answer ones that we had here as well.
Yeah. And about the exam, the question if the exam is going to be on site or at home.
At the moment, I think they say that they are as planned, and that would be on site.
Yes. So.
But I don't know if you have looked the tally on COVID-19 seemed to go up in August again. So, but I think even if it's going to be online, I think the exam format that we have is probably going to work pretty well.
Yes.
So we don't need to make any changes.
But as I understand, they will try to run as normal.
Yeah.
So you can expect, unless further notice, that will be on site.
Yeah. So at the moment, it is on site.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else you would like to?
Do we have any questions as we start really preparing for it? Can we send you guys an email with whatever questions you may have, or is that not something you'd rather not?
Well,
If we want you to clarify something, just ask me.
I don't mind.
yeah, I think
You
it's
can do
okay.
that.
I mean, I'll be happy. I mean, depends, of course, if we get a lot, then of course we might start to rethink. But I mean, if you're clearly kind of wondering what the concept means, and instead of sending an email saying, what does this concept mean? Send an email saying, I've been wondering because I think this and this and this, and so in a way that we
Did I correctly understand
Yeah.
or something?
Yeah.
or kind of a why to
Absolutely.
respond to your reflections rather than just answering you.
It would be more like if you need something to it,
Yeah.
you're unsure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah,
sure, no
you're
problem.
welcome to
Yeah.
write.
And the other thing is that if you don't get an answer, send another email to remind, because
Yes.
sometimes we get a lot and then it slips kind of our mind, but
Yeah.
feel free to harass.
Yes,
It's okay.
Rust, yes.
Yeah.
You can do that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, put it into an open, like, question and answers in Blackboard, because then you also are not getting the same questions. So you have the same, but then you can plug into Blackboard to see if someone else has answered. And then
Okay.
have the
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. We can use Blackboard to do that.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yes,
Yeah.
we will consider
We'll-
that absolutely.
We'll try to find out how it works.
Yes.
I think but it probably gives us notification when they come. I think the challenge, of course, for us is that we don't always hang on the Blackboard that much, but I think it gives notification of those.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that's good.
Yes. Thanks.
Okay. If there is nothing more for us at this point, then thank you very much for being a nice class.
Thank you. Yes.
And yeah, so we look forward to seeing your responses to the exam.
Yes.
Okay, and seeing you around.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.